right, welcome everybody to our first episode of Arcadecast, our monthly podcast where we're going to talk about all things arcade and location-based entertainment, including bringing industry experts onto the show covering topics that can make a positive impact on your business. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, and you can also listen to this as a podcast, whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. So the topics today, first of all, I would like to welcome our guest, Maggie McCartney, who is the Corporate Director of Marketing and Branding for Scene75. She'll be talking about winning the Brass Ring Award for the top FEC of the world. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Along with Maggie, I would like to introduce our co-hosts, Colby Colquitt and Allison Timberlake, who are members of the LAI Games marketing team. Say hi, guys.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Outside of talking with Maggie today, we're going to be talking about an industry poll that we ran over the last few weeks. Hopefully you got a chance to see it. A lot of people weighed in. We're going to be talking about the impact that Omicron has had on operations for businesses around the world. We're going to be covering some upcoming trade shows and some information around that. Some of the events have moved, and Amusement Expo is the next big show on the lineup, which we've got some information about. We are then going to be covering some top tips for operating Angry Birds Coin Crash, one of our most recent successful games that is performing well for operators, and we're going to tell you how to get even more out of that game. So without further ado, let's kick off our discussion with Maggie. Maggie, maybe you can start by telling us the answer to the big question. How did you do it? How did you win the top FEC of the World Award? What makes Scene75 special, and especially why do you think the Columbus location was selected for the award?
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, thank you guys so much for having us on here. And congratulations to starting your podcast. It's so exciting. To be honest with you, we've been asking ourselves the same question. I know it's one of those things that when you win something that's that incredible and that prestigious, I mean, it's so humbling. And we look at ourselves, you know, the other two FECs that were up for nomination were Andretti's in Orlando and Wild Island Coconut Bowl, and they are both phenomenal FECs. So, you know, for us, we feel incredibly humbled. You know, we're at the same time as just everybody else. We're just figuring things out as we go along the way. And so, you know, we've picked up some things along the way that we've learned. We're certainly learning new things every year, but we are just so humbled to even get this award. And it's actually the second time that we have won it. In 2016, wow. Our Cincinnati location won it as well. Yeah, so, you know, we're happy that people love the product, and we're so excited to win the award. But yeah, for Columbus specifically, I mean, that just on the surface of why I think that it got the recognition that it did was when you walk into that building, any person, I guarantee you walk into it and you will be blown away. It is an absolutely beautiful venue, both just in the visual experience as well as the entertainment offering experience. We built it in an anchor of a mall, which was our first location. I mean, with this one, we really changed the model across the board, shifting from traditionally an indoor FEC is what a lot of our other facilities are, to this one. We really wanted to take it and say, how can we make this a little bit more of an indoor amusement park? So we started looking at bigger games, bigger thrills. You know, what are those things that, similar to go-karts, really make people, you know, it creates lasting lifetime experiences and a lot of those firsts. So let's get on our first roller coaster. Let's get on our first drop tower. So stuff like that. And the facility is 220,000 square feet. It's 2 stories. Yeah, which was an incredible, exciting venture, but also a challenge at the same time. I mean, it was just a whole new experience figuring out how we were going to do this. And there's a place in the facility where our 2-story drop tower cuts right in between the second floor. So, I mean, when you're walking in there, it's just the kinetic energy from everything moving around you and all these things, and you can see down into the second floor. I mean, it's so wild. And so
do you see people as you're walking through the venue? Do you see people just like dropping out of nowhere if you're on the first floor? Is that's what I visualize?
Yes. If you're on the second floor, first off, there's go-karts right next to you. So the cut in the floor lines up directly with the go-kart track. So people will be zooming by and they can look over and be face-to-face, eye level with someone that's being raised up on the drop tower and getting ready to drop down. And around so the one side is the go-karts, and then the rest of it, the other 3 panels are just the game floor. So you can just walk over, and people will collect there all day and just sit there and watch as, again, these kids come up and then they're eye level with you as they're screaming, and then they drop down. I mean, it's such
charge
a
for
cool,
admission just to watch. That's amazing.
just to watch it. Yeah. And same thing with, like, right across from that is the indoor roller coaster, which is our first one that we put in. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful, but we weren't expecting originally that when you would be in the building, you would feel the floor rumble, like, which is because it's on the second floor, and you feel the whole building rumbles, and then you hear screams from, you know, people, ah! And it just creates an atmosphere that is so different than, like, the traditional FEC atmosphere. And it's something that, you know, really sticks with you. We have, you know, and again, because it was an anchor of what eventually turned into a Macy's, it just has all these really pretty architectural details that are not typically in our other locations. Our other locations are built from old warehouses or old grocery stores. So kind of just big boxes that we're like, all right, let's fill this up. And Columbus, it has this beautiful center area where these 2 glass elevators go up to the second floor, and then there's these 2 crisscross escalators, and it creates this whole center area that we thought this would be cool if we added a 15-foot screen and slapped it up against the back of the elevators, threw a bar right there. So, I mean, on game days, like on big football days, you know, people crowd around, and again, you can look down at the people coming up, and you see these kids on this escalator as they're going up, and they're just looking around like, what is this place? It's absolutely wild. So I think that, of course, like, you know, visually, experientially, adding in those big attractions, having the laser tag or the roller coaster, the drop tower, those big things, as well as the collection of all of our phenomenal attractions that have performed so well at our other locations, like go-karts, laser tag, you know, all those things, bounce. That's really, like, at the surface level what makes it so special. But I mean, I think a bigger key portion of it, and when they go to select these winners for IAAPA, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, what we believe in and live for as a brand. And we really strongly believe that it's not just, you know, what we do is entertain people, right? But we also believe wholeheartedly that we are here to serve, and that value, that mission statement, you know, all these things that are alive in our core values and what we live by and how we train our team is really what sets us apart, that we feel from other facilities, or at least drives us in why we're doing what we're doing. And we do a lot of that stuff from our community programs that we do throughout the year. We have multiple free events, like our indoor free trick-or-treat event where the kids can kind of come in and just trick-or-treat for free. We do 2 days every year of a special needs programming day where anyone with special needs can come in for free and enjoy the facility. We do the same thing. We just started a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, where once a month you can come in with your big, or you can come in with your little if you're a big, and they can come in and enjoy the place for free. And it's just this idea that, you know, we're not just setting up shop in a city that we go in. We're really looking to become a part of that community and improve to it and add to it, and do what we can to, you know, improve the lives of the families and the kids that are there. We do a lot of programming with the local schools in the area. We're really passionate about education. We do different programs through local colleges. Like in Wright State, we host a summer camp where the business school brings in teams and they spend 5 days at Scene75 trying to figure out, you know, what is given the business prompt that we give them, what would they suggest that we do for the next year? And it's a great activity for them to kind of get into that business mindset and pitching things to other businesses. And, you know, I mean, just things like that is what we feel like really drives us and what separates us from maybe our competitors in a market that we just feel like we genuinely care. But yeah, again, we're just so happy to even be in.
You want me to, like, I want to move there now.
Oh, where can we see this place?
I can't wait to go visit the location.
Awesome.
Sounds amazing. Yeah.
I think we have to put that on our marketing budget for
Yes,
that's right.
Noted.
Columbus.
Yep. We've got
That
four in
is
Ohio,
awesome.
so you can just hop, skip around to all of them. And I didn't mean to also too. I mean, it's so easy to talk about how phenomenal Columbus is, but genuinely, all of the locations, have those wonderful features. And with Dayton, the one that I'm in right now, we just rebuilt it. It was hit by tornadoes in May of 2019, which was while we were building out Columbus. Which was just an absolutely wild thing. I mean, Columbus opened in October of 2019. So it was only open for a few months before COVID. So, I mean, it's really been like a wild ride. And the fact that we opened Dayton, which was our original location, we added in 40,000 square feet. We added in a double-decker carousel, a roller coaster into this one, a drop tower. So, I mean, all of the locations are absolutely beautiful, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. And how many locations do you have in total?
So we have 4 in total that are operating. We are building one in the Chicago area, in the Romeoville area, which is kind of near Naperville.
Okay.
So that's
yeah, that's great.
Okay, so Scene75 is kind of a unique name. It doesn't automatically make you think of FEC. Where did that name come from, and what's the story behind that?
Yeah, we get that all the time, from guests to news interviews. I mean, everyone's like, what is this weird name? I mean, the good thing is that once you know it, I mean, it stands out from a crowd, right? So if somebody says Scene75 and you know what it is, you hear it. But the name actually came from, so our original location in Dayton is right off of I-75. It's got great highway visibility on one of the major American highways. And it's an exit down from the crossroads of 70 and 75. So we knew it was going to be right on 75. And that's where the number kind of comes from. Scene was actually, so we're a family-owned company. That's a big component of who we are. And that spills out through everything that we do, just having those family-owned values. And our owner and founder and CEO, Jonah Sandler, who's an incredibly driven, passionate CEO and entrepreneur, who's really poured his heart and soul into the business. And he's here every single day. His father, Les, is in here every single day. They're incredibly involved. And they're the ones who started everything. And they knew that, they had this building. It was right on 75. They didn't really know what they were going to do with it. Jonah was actually working in Chicago. He was an investment banker. And, he did that for a few years, and he kind of felt like, I don't really know if this is for me. It's a little cutthroat. And meanwhile, his father, who's back here in Ohio, who's a real estate developer, business was kind of tough back in 2012 for everybody in the US. And, he had all these great properties, one of them being this building here. And he kind of looked to his son and said, hey, the business needs help. Like, is there anything you can do? And so Jonah kind of pivoted and said, all right, well, I want to take this home, and what can I do to kind of help my family and maybe find something worthwhile that is more exciting and I can pour my passions into. And they kind of ended up just thinking about it. And it's something that they've always had a passion with, something in the entertainment space. And so they just kind of started it. And they knew that this building was so special, that it being right on the highway, it's 200,000 square feet in this building. And so, what could we do? There wasn't a lot of different offerings in the area. But before all that, Jonah's sister, Ari, was looking to start a website that would help people who are curating artwork. And they had been talking about it as something that they had just kind of talked about as a family for months. And she knew that she wanted to call it Scene 81, 81 being the year that she was born. And Scene, she just felt like it sounded like, the art scene, and let's, be at the scene or be seen at the scene. And, that adventure ended up not happening. But as they were working on this building and building out what would to become Scene75, they kept thinking like, scene at the scene, all that stuff. And so they just said, you know what, let's go with that. And now we use it internally. We almost use it as like a pet name for our business. We're like, hey, you at the scene? Or, you'll see on social media, that's what we call it, like, come to be at the scene. And our marketable, like our little wristbands that we give out at different events that we're doing. We have them at our redemption counter say, I was seen at the scene. So it's been something that, we've loved. Still a weird name, but
Awesome.
It's who you are.
Nice, I love it.
What's that, Colby?
said if it didn't work out back then when they started it, it could have been a good band name to fall back on.
Scene75.
Totally.
I love that.
Struggling artists.
Yeah, at one point at our first location that we were opening in Milford, it's off of, I think, 275. And there was a small moment in time where we said, should we name the second location Scene 275? And like, thank God we didn't do that. That would have been a logistic thing. Thankfully, we had the common sense to be like, nope, let's stick it, brand name all the way. So
that's good. That's a can of worms, because then you have to follow the trend. And if you open another location, you've got to rename that. And that's a good choice.
Things in bulk, I really start. That's the only benefit of how, you can buy something for the whole site. Imagine if we were, only a small quantity here and here. Like, yeah, it would have been a nightmare. The website, yeah.
Totally. One of the things that has come up a lot recently, we've seen a lot of conversations with what's going on with COVID, and I think people are less patient, and I don't know, the society's changed a lot. We've seen a lot of stuff on social media lately about locations dealing with customer complaints, and especially online, because I think there's a bad habit of people complaining about stuff online when they don't have to answer to anybody. They can say some terrible things, and it doesn't have to be validated. And so, that's something that I think a lot of operators are struggling. I was just wondering, how do you deal with customer complaints, especially online? What's your process or protocol?
Yeah, that is something that we, thankfully we generally across the board, we've always had really great reviews that we've been really fortunate to do. And something that we personally focus on is we pour a ton of time and energy and hours into responding to every single review and comment, regardless if it's positive or negative, and across all platforms. So again, it's something that's like every Monday, let's sit down, let's go through all of them. And I think for the positive people, you really want them to know, like, hey, because I think it takes honestly more energy for people to leave a positive review, because they don't have that fuel of like being fired up. So I always want those positive reviews to know that, like, hey, this made a difference. We're a family-owned company, so thank you for taking this time. And for the negative reviews, I think it's important to, make every single person feel heard and feel validated. And even if it's things that that you necessarily don't agree with, or it's something that you can't help, right? So I think like with mask policies, when it was, if the state requires a mask policy, we have to follow it. And I think that people have a tendency to take it out on the business. And, it's something that you can't do. It's something that every single business is struggling with. So all you can do is just, say, hey, due to the state requirements, this is what we're doing. And really our goal is to just keep everybody safe. And, ultimately at the end of the day, you're not going to make everybody happy. I think a good rule of thumb that I have had is to, it's not worth going back and forth with people on a public space. So anything you can do to say, hey, here's our general manager, like here's their direct email. You can email them. A lot of times we in marketing will take the reviews and send it to the team, either for the team to discuss if it's something that we think that, could actually be improved, or if it's something that, we can't help and it's masks or, something like that they're just upset. We will send it to the GM and say, hey, can you personally reach out to this guest and let them know if there's anything we can do, whether it's hey, we'll give you a voucher to come back later, when this is maybe more convenient for your family, or, something along those lines. But I think it's really important to let those people be heard, but you're never going to convince anyone over a comment or over a review. I think that other people start chiming in, or maybe somebody gets the wrong impression, and do what you can to make them feel heard. I even had someone the other day that was like, hey, so I noticed that there was like a few games down, and typically that's something that never happens with us. That's another thing that we pour a lot of time and energy into, is making sure that almost 100% of our game floor is up all the time. It takes a ton of effort. It's part of the reason that we're closed on Monday and Tuesday. And with the global shipping delays that everyone across the world is experiencing, we're not able to keep that quite at 100%. So, someone had mentioned it, and I originally, like, my first gut reaction is to say, hey, I hear what you're saying, and we're doing everything, but I want you to know that this is not, the typical standard. And because of this global problem that we can't help, we're doing our best, but you are going to see a few games down. And then I had to stop, and I was like, nope, because that person, someone else could walk in here and they're not going to notice those 5 games. And by publicly posting that comment, now you're raising
an issue that people weren't thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah. If you come in, you're not getting the 100% experience. Like, that's what I'm affirming for all these people. Yeah. So you're better off just anytime you can, just, we hear you, thank you for the feedback. I think that's really important. Is even if it's a review that makes you so angry or a comment that makes you so angry, it's always important to swallow your pride a little bit and thank that person for giving their feedback. So do what you can, and try to settle it elsewhere.
I've always been an advocate as well of recognizing people's comments, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's tough for people don't leave positive comments. They just go about their business. But everybody will always leave a negative comment. That doesn't take much effort on their part. What's your advice in terms of taking conversations offline? I think responding to them and acknowledging them, in the moment online, especially for other people who are going to be reading reviews, whatever. But is it been good practice for you guys, or is it your practice to say, let me address this, but then try to take it offline?
Yeah, I think we try to, it depends on the situation. So if we think it's something that is so specific to that person's, unique specific thing, we will try to take it offline, be like, let us solve this for you. Because you have to be careful that if you just post like, hey, yeah, we will refund you your whole game card. You don't want to say that. Everybody's going to want to refund every time. Yeah, because then people learn that, like, oh, okay, when it is situational, that, it's something that you really want to make sure that this is the best solution to solve that person's problem. So I think the most important thing is, in that reply comment, to just acknowledge it, own up to it, and say, I'm really sorry that your experience was not up to our standards. We have that's the first thing, is just, we always make sure to at least own up that we have standards that are up to here, and this was not your experience. So we're validating that and saying, we hear you, please reach out to us, or would you feel comfortable messaging us so that we can address this with you further?
Yeah, that's a great way to handle it.
So you gave some advice on, handling customers and everything, and then you also talked about how you guys are, great and have these awesome attractions. But what other advice do you have for, maybe a new FEC or any other FEC out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, a thing that I think really feeds into our whole culture is like, don't afraid to get your hands dirty, or don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I think that is something that, again, because we're family owned, and fortunately, our owners are extremely involved. They're here every day. And honestly, I think that you'll see that in a lot of family owned FECs, is that, they're there every weekend, making sure that things are going. And, but I think that what that shows, and especially as you grow, now that we're, looking at being 5 sites, that, that owner can't be at every single location every single day. So you have to make sure that your, your regional team and your executive team follows that same thing, that everyone's willing to help out, that if there's a line, you'll jump on it, that if there's a mess, you'll clean it up. And I think that that's something that, even when you look back to, Walt Disney always saying that he'll walk around this park, and if he sees trash, he will pick it up. No one is too big or too high up to do the work themselves. And I think that keeping that mentality is something that it trickles down. And I think that, how do you expect, an hourly staff member to have that level of ownership? You expect so much of these kids, but you really have to have that ownership all the way from the top down. So I think that that's something that's incredibly important. I would say another thing is something that we personally have learned is don't put too much energy and emphasis into your, food and beverage. I know that sounds kind of like reverse, but I think I've seen a lot of centers where they start out with these really extravagant, like fine dining. I shouldn't say that you shouldn't have a quality product. You should have fun food that is exciting. But at the end of the day, I think it's an afterthought and it's an upsell for guests. They're not coming to your location to eat dinner and then maybe do something else. So don't put your focus forward on like, first, let's figure out our food and let's figure out this intense restaurant concept. I think you should, think about your games and your attractions and your experiences, because there are so many restaurants and so many bars in every city that one of these FECs are at. But how many FECs are there? People are really looking for that memorable experience where they can go and have fun, and the food and drinks is an afterthought. That should be something that you're trying to upsell them with. And I don't think that we've fully put our finger on the perfect F&B model, but for sure for us, I mean, we have bars at every single location. We think it's important to create an experience that obviously a family is going to like, but also like, not just the kids are going to like. You want it to make it so that adults are comfortable in that space. They're not like, oh gosh, let's get out of here. This is for kids. I don't want to be here as added to my stress. You want it to be somewhere where truly both adults and kids walk out of here feeling the same amount of enjoyment, that they both enjoyed the day and they had something memorable to take away from it. And that's not just
that's a really interesting one, actually, the food and beverage thing. If I can ask a question, it's like a side question for that. Something that I've heard a lot over time from operators, the decision to add food and beverage to their venue if they don't have it already. Is there any benefit to keeping people in your venue longer by having a food and beverage offering, rather than, they play for 2 hours, something like that, and they need a break, rather than going somewhere else to go get something to eat and then they're not going to come back at that stage. You keep somebody in your venue a little bit longer. Do you see a benefit for adding a food and beverage to your venue, particularly to keep people there a little bit longer?
Oh, absolutely. And when I say, don't be food and beverage first, I think that food and beverage is absolutely necessary. I think you're right. And when you look at least the trends that we've watched from our facilities for the last 10 years, is that people will only spend a certain amount of money on attractions and games. And, it's for us across the board, from the sites that have less games and attractions, it's the same to the sites that have, more. So the more things you throw into a building, it doesn't necessarily mean that each guest is going to spend more, because I think that people all kind of come to the table with an idea of what they want to spend on that fun, and they're only going to do that fun for so long. For us, the benefit of adding those additional attractions and adding as much in as possible is that it hopefully creates a repeat experience, that someone can come back again and maybe do the other things that they didn't get a chance to do. So where you need to look at, like, okay, where can I get that extra dollar, is from something that's different. And a great way to do that is through food and beverage. And just like you said, that not only does it get that extra spend, but then it also creates more time spent in the building, that people will be like, oh, okay. Or, even too, I mean, it also goes into that, what's going to be a good experience for every single person in the family. And grandma may not want to, be walking around the whole time. She may not, just because there's a table, in the arcade,
she doesn't want to do the big drop.
Yeah, no, I mean, some grandmas do. They're the first ones there. But, I think that having that dining experience, really adds value to, some of those guests that, need a break and need a breather, and want their kids to still be able to run around and have fun, but, they need to recharge their batteries. And, if you get them there, stay longer. So.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I wanted to ask that question, but please share some more tips.
I think for us, we've started adding in, so we traditionally have a restaurant model. At some of our locations, it's a full sit down dining experience. At some of our locations, we've tried out a food truck concept, where we literally, we purchased FedEx trucks, which in the future we would probably create that, we would fabricate them, but we literally purchased 2 trucks, sliced them in half, slapped them up against the wall, and built a kitchen behind it. So we were just trying to figure out what's a way that we could turn this into a quick service, that maybe the full sit down dining experience wasn't quite it. It takes a while to get people in and out. So what's something that's kind of in between? And then now in our Chicago location, we're trying something that's a little bit more quick service, where instead of having 3 different registers, you go up, you grab your food, and then you go to exit, and then you pay for your food all together. And then in addition to those kind of bigger restaurant models, we have snack bars where we serve pretzels and ices, which ices are great. Those even quicker snacks. And what we've started adding is actually a third. We also have the bar, as well. We have multiple bars at each location, but we've added in a pretzel cart, which is just a quick, all it is it's a pretzel warmer. We cook the pretzels somewhere else, and then we bring them there where they can keep warm. There's a cheese dispenser, and that has done super well for us. People, it's just something about that, like, you're just trying to convince them in that quick moment. They're like, "Oh, that pretzel smells good. Let me just quickly just grab this, and then I'm out."
That's a fantastic idea.
That'll get me. That'll be my weakness.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Who doesn't
delicious.
love a big
I
soft
eat way
pretzel?
too many of them. Yeah.
I think that's a phenomenal idea, actually, and I hadn't even considered that. Hopefully, a lot of other operators can get some inspiration from that too, because you don't need to go and make a big meal experience. Even sitting down and eating a burger is a lot more work than, say, grabbing a pretzel or some snack bar concept. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and honestly, in today's world where food inventory is so hard to keep up. Just in the last few months, we're changing out our menus on a weekly basis across the sites, and it's just depending on what they can get.
Due to
and
availability?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're thinking that you just have a few items, it certainly makes it a lot easier, to just filter out those few items and operate that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, those are fantastic tips. I think especially the food and beverage topic. I think there's a lot of eye openers there for me. We don't operate FECs, obviously, but we're always thinking about the operational standpoint of locations, and there's a lot of really great stuff there. That's awesome. The last question here, which is kind of a segue, which I might actually share the results of the poll before I ask you this final question, Maggie. We ran a poll this month leading up to the podcast here about how Omicron has affected locations and whether it's had a negative impact on locations. And funny enough, it was a complete 50-50 split from all the responses that came in. And as these responses started to roll in, we've kind of kept an eye on things. It wavered back and forth a little bit. It was always more on the side of not having a negative impact versus having the negative impact. We came out with a clean 50-50 split. But to share some of the comments that came out of that poll, one person said, no huge change in guest behavior or protocols, but numbers were down because people just weren't going out in public as much. Somebody else said, guests seem to have shorter tempers and less tolerance for other guests or the challenges that we're facing with things like short staffing, cleaning procedures, games being down, etc. Another one, we saw negative impacts simply due to the holiday and not increased COVID fears from Omicron. And this was specifically around Omicron, I should state. Another one, as the rate of infections increased, business levels decreased. January is historically our best full month. However, it is heading towards one of our worst. Restrictions on the unvaccinated in our types of businesses are also having an impact. With hearing some of that feedback, Maggie, are those things that you're facing, or are you facing some of your challenges? How has Omicron affected the business, if it has at all?
Yeah, for us, we are definitely, we are facing that impact as well. It's honestly, it's shocking to me that people would even say that 50% of, centers aren't being impacted by it. I think that's absolutely wild. Here in Ohio, definitely the numbers are going up, and that's impacting, people are sick. They can't come in, and, they're waiting till they recover, or they're trying to not spend time with other people. It's all those things that are going into it. Our attendance is certainly down. We've had to readjust our January numbers. It's the same thing with everyone else. We're having to look at the year and be like, oh, wow. Staffing is a big issue for us because, again, it just goes through and your staff gets sick, and then, who's going to work. We've had a few party delays. We do a lot of corporate business and large company business, and a lot of those people are pushing it back a few years. Fortunately, they're not canceling at this point, but they are pushing it back a few months to kind of see when, or maybe I would say a month is where everyone's kind of feeling comfortable. But, it's been tough. We're trying to keep a good head on our shoulders about it and, keep up with all of our safety procedures that we've been doing. Our state hasn't enforced too many new mandates. In our Columbus location, the city of Columbus, masks are required there. But at all of our locations, it's kind of right now still staying the course. And we have our team wearing masks. We're doing everything we can to just make sure that, like you said, as games are up, games are clean, and that people are coming in and getting a good experience, and just dealing with it that way. But, we're positive or we're hopeful, I should say, not positive. I mean, no one knows. But we are hopeful. Yeah, positive. We are hopeful that things will get better, and that from what we've read, that the peak should be, in this coming few weeks. So hopefully after that, things start going down and we can get back on the year, back on track where we projected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish you all the best in that regard, as we do wish all of the operators across the entire industry the best. Just to put it in perspective too, I think when we started this poll, Omicron had just been announced. Like, it had just been kind of discovered, and it was just starting. And so I think a lot of the responses that came in early on were probably no impact. And we haven't had as many responses as the month has gone on. For whatever reason, but this is also a worldwide poll, and everybody's dealing with things differently. And this is not just U.S. centric. I'm actually located in Australia, and a lot of the businesses around here, even though Omicron is fairly rampant everywhere, the businesses here seem to be pushing forward and just dealing with things, rather than, I guess the government hasn't put in types of restrictions as in other areas. So it's different everywhere. But I just wanted to, for everybody watching, and just putting this in perspective, because I think a lot of the comments that came in are very negatively geared. Again, people leave negative comments versus positive comments, so they keep it in this instance. But yeah, it's just interesting. And I think what you've said, I think a lot of operators are probably dealing with. But at the end of the day, we wish you all the best, as we do all the operators watching this Arcadecast. We're going to take a quick break here for an announcement, and just stay with us. We will be right back.
Head on over to our parts store for a special discount for our Arcadecast listeners. It's a Let's Bounce button sale for 10% off. Use coupon code podcast10 and take advantage of the offer. LAI Games is now shipping 2-player and 3-player versions of Angry Bird Coin Crash, the only tower-building coin pusher in the United States. Contact your distributor today to get the most innovative coin pusher on the market. Make sure you're subscribed to the LAI Games Insider. Visit laigames.com/insider to sign up now. For YouTube listeners, we will provide a link in the description below.
And we're back. We are going to talk about some upcoming trade shows, some regional shows. The SEMA show has been postponed. There's no date set yet, but it's likely going to be in April or May at this stage. There's some international shows. EAG was postponed from the beginning of this month to March 1st through 3rd. So for anyone watching from our international audience, you can expect EAG at the beginning of March. The New Jersey Amusement Association is happening the week before Amusement Expo, something to keep your eye on if you're in that area. And Amusement Expo in March, obviously the first real big show of the year. Make sure that you put LAI Games booth number 305 on your schedule. We had some questions for you, Maggie. We know what a show looks like as a manufacturer, but we wanted to know what a show looks like for someone attending as a customer. What's important to you? How do you go about planning a show? And this is good information for maybe anybody on the operations, the supply chain side of the business, manufacturers and suppliers and things like that. What can we be doing better to serve the customer audience there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, it's a ton of fun. I don't have to be stuck at a booth all day like you guys. I get to go around and experience everything. So right off the bat, I mean, how could you not love it? But what we do, and fortunately, I've been, fortunate enough to go for 2 years. I'm the head of marketing, so I'm not particularly purchasing games myself, but being very close with the owners. I mean, they always go there with a laundry list of, all right, these are the new games, these are the hot games that we want to go and look at. And typically, there's a few vendors that we know for sure, okay, these are our top, go check out this, go see what this new attraction is. And, we have some meetings, and then the rest of it's just tackling it row by row and just going through every little thing, because you never know what is going to catch your eye, or, what's something that you didn't intend on seeing that, you might see. As far as the arcade, I mean, the arcade is probably the most fun side of it. I mean, especially this year, because there were so many less big attractions. So it was like the arcade was like, oh, this is super fun. I'm sure you guys experienced that same thing of trying to get everything in. But, I think for us, it's just being friendly, being approachable. I think everyone was very understanding that, perhaps this year people weren't buying as much that they might have in years past. And certainly I know that we weren't, but I think everyone, like I said, all the vendors, they were very understanding of that, and they were happy to see the people that were out there, and excited that we were able to have IAAPA this year. And I just keep doing what you're doing. I think that don't be too pushy is the other thing. Some people, some people are a little intense, and the only thing that it leaves in your mouth is like, oh, well, I know I'm not a fan of that.
Gonna avoid that. I'll avoid that business.
Just be normal people. I mean, it's not a scenario, I think, where you have to be, don't be a car salesman. I mean, it's just the product. If it's a good product, it sells itself. And especially with arcade games, I mean, you play it, you get the experience. So just being helpful, ready to go with questions of, what's the throughput on this? What are you typically charging for it? And where's this on the lineup of your popular games? Those are all big questions that we're asking, and but they're fun to see. Thank you guys for coming to all these shows and giving people the chance to experience it firsthand and be able to play, because I think that's the best way to sell a game.
Yeah, absolutely. We love it as well. They're great events, and we love showcasing new product, and for us as well, it's fun. These are things we're very, very proud of to show off. So that's we love it as well. We're going to move on to our segment for the top tips for operating Angry Birds Coin Crash. Now, this is one of our big releases here that has been getting some great feedback from operators. Maggie, you mentioned that you saw it at IAAPA, and give us your thoughts about the game.
Yeah, well, first off, I love your booth is like so colorful and so bright, and I absolutely love it. And immediately I would say one of the first things I went up to was the Angry Birds game, and people were all crowded around it. And so we waited our turn, we get up there, and I see the tower of coins. And so I specifically remember this from all the games I played, that I walked right up to it. I slapped the button, and immediately that whole tower of coins fell, and it was so exciting. I was like, man, if I was a guest in a facility and I had that experience, I mean, like, just a kid would absolutely love that. It's so satisfying from the sounds and the experience. I mean, it's what you want out of a coin pusher, I think.
Awesome. That's exactly the reaction that we're trying to get out of the games, that game specifically. So that's good. That's great to hear. We've got some tips from operators that we've spoken with over time, and we field a lot of questions about the best way to operate that game. It's a complicated game. When a guest steps up to it, it's not immediately apparent about what every objective is. There's so many different ways to win tickets and get that excitement from the game and keep people at the game. And so we get a lot of questions about what are the best ways to operate it. And so we've got a bit of a laundry list here that we've collected over the last few months that we wanted to share with operators. And we'll just kind of go through these one by one and talk about them. And then we'd love your input on it, Maggie, as we kind of talk through some of these things.
Here are the top 5 tips for operating Angry Birds Coin Crash. Number 1. Tweak the payout for your location. Test with a game card until you find the sweet spot of giving people value and hitting your payout target. Number 2. Add a higher perceived value and increase play by lowering the amount of super bonus tickets and increasing the number of coins per credit. You can also utilize the incremental coins per credit capability. Number 3, having stools at the game also works well for many locations. If you notice mom and dad using them to rest on while watching their kids play, think about providing extra seating in key spots. Number 4, keep towers on the playfield. The coin towers are what makes Angry Birds Coin Crash so attractive. At a minimum, start each day with them. Towers can be built on demand using the operator menu. Number 5, do you have YouTube star Arcade Matt's How to Play QR code stickers? Players just scan the QR code and watch Matt explain how to play the game. You can request stickers for your game at marketing@laigames.com.
Is that something you've ever seen on any other games, Maggie? Is how to play instructions with, every game kind of has how to play kind of built into the instruction panel or somewhere on the game generally, but QR code is like an external link on how to play a game. Have you ever seen that?
No, definitely not by a manufacturer for sure. And honestly, it makes me want to immediately kind of steal that idea. I'm like, okay, where can I put that on some of our games that create problems? Honestly, a suggestion is I would say like most people, first off, Virtual Rad is one of our most popular games. Like people absolutely love it. But every once in a while, I'll have someone be like, do I need, like, I'll just walk by it and someone will be like, is there like a thing? And I'm like, no, once you get into it, you'll understand it. Like you just put it on the headset. Maybe for something like that where it feels so different and like foreign, I think, to someone who doesn't know what is VR, it might be helpful for that too, to just a quick little like, hey, all you do is you swipe the card, you strap it on, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Great feedback.
Yeah, and QR codes made a comeback from COVID, so everyone's used to using them. Before that, everyone would see a QR code and they wouldn't even care. Just like, I'm not scanning that. But it's kind of taught everyone, how important they are and how much we can use them for.
Oh yeah, we use them for everything. A good idea, I think, for other FECs is for hiring. Like we have it on anything that we push about now hiring or we're hiring. We have a QR code directly to the application, just to be like, hey, scan this and go. And obviously F&B is really great for that too. But I mean, there's just so many uses for it. I'm incredibly appreciative for that transition in society, is that people are just, they know what to do. You don't need to explain it. And waivers is a great thing, that if you have attractions that need waivers signed for, just pop that QR code so that they don't have to wait to use whatever station you're using.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a really handy feature that pre-COVID in the US anyway. Outside of the US, QR codes have been popular for a while, but I'm really happy that they've gained some traction because they're super functional. They're easy to use, and we should have been using them a long time ago.
Yeah. We just forced everyone to use them. Everyone was so stubborn that they didn't want to use them, and now we had to.
No, definitely a benefit. All right. I would like to thank everyone for listening or watching our first ever podcast, Arcadecast. And we'd like to thank our special guest again, Maggie McCartney. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much for having us and having me on here. We're so excited to be a part of this. We're so excited for you guys to be starting this. And I think it's something that people will find so much value in, and especially in these times where people need, some extra guidance and maybe some direction on how to solve these unique problems that everyone's coming into. So I think it's absolutely great. And, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. And that's exactly right. We want to provide valuable feedback, and we would love to hear your feedback. Anyone who has any feedback here, feedback, comments, questions, you can submit them at laigames.com/arcadecast, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can drop them in the comments below. We would love to hear any requests for upcoming topics or poll questions that we can integrate into the show. Next month's special guest is going to be Bob Cooney. He is the industry's foremost expert on location-based VR. I'm sure most people know him. He loves a microphone, so I think we can expect a lot of great feedback from Bob. But as we look forward towards Amusement Expo and the 5th anniversary of the Amusement Expo's VR Summit, we're going to talk to Bob about VR. You can follow us on social media at laigames.com/social. make sure that you're signed up to the LAI Games Insider at laigames.com/insider. And as always, reminder, you can order parts 24/7, 365 at parts.laigames.com. So thank you again to everyone, and signing off for LAI Games and Scene75.
Bye. Bye.